So I just want to show you a nice visible way of fixing your favourite jumpers and giving them more life. So this is a mend that I've done on this chunky Scandinavian jumper. It's called a darn. Okay, if you look closely you can see the yarn is interwoven like you would weave a fabric, and I've done that on this, and I've fixed the cuff as well. Okay. And it looks pretty good. It looks good. It looks better than the whole anyway, and it keeps, it gives a bit of character. It's all because I put this like little back stitch frame around it. It's almost made it like a bit of art. And you could go on and you could do like a little bit of embroidery into this just to give it a little bit of fun, put your own little mark into it. And it's definitely given this jumper a new life. So when I did this jumper, because the yarns are pretty thick, I used a thick knitting yarn. Okay, but today I'm going to be mending this jumper, which is made from a much finer yarn, and it's also got polyester in it. If you look at the actual constituents of the yarn, it is, it's acrylic, it's 100% acrylic. So I don't want to be using a cotton thread or a wool thread on this, because when we wash it, cotton or the wool is going to shrink at a different rate to the acrylic. So for this, I'm just going to be using these mending wools that you can buy in a lot of haberdashery shops. And these are partly wool, but they're mostly nylon. So they're going to shrink at the same rate as your garment. And also, if you look at the width of this yarn, it's going to blend in really nicely. Maybe not the colour so much, but it's going to blend in nicely with this actual garment itself. And also we need knitting, we need these sort of needles. Some people use darning needles, but the thing is the darning needles usually have a point at the end. So a knitting needle, it's not sharp, so it's not going to pierce the actual yarns themselves. You want them to go in between the yarns so we can weave, not really darn. Okay. Also, I'm going to put something underneath this hole. I'm just going to use a lemon. You can use an orange. They do actually sell things called mushrooms, little wooden mushrooms for darning, and they hold it. They sort of just give your fabric a bit of a stretch so that we can easily go in and make a nice little shape. Right, so I'm going to hold this in place with, I'm going to take the bobble out of my hair. Hopefully my plaits don't fall out. I'm going to just hold this in place just to keep it taut. Okay, right, let's stretch that hole out a little bit. We don't want it too stretched. Okay, so let's get my needle, and I'm going to start with this red yarn. And there's 15 meters on this, so there's actually enough to yarn about 15 jumpers. So it's not an expensive thing to do. Okay, I'm just going to lick the end of this. It should go through quite easily because the holes in these are proper knitting needle, they're the sort of needles that you use to when you're knitting your pieces of, your knitted pieces together if you're hand knitting. So they're quite easy to thread up. Okay. I'm not going to actually put a hole at the bottom of that. I'm just going to bring it through quite far away. I'm going to start here. I'm going to leave a big tail. Okay, now if you wanted to, you could put like a little square around here just to sort of give you just going to put some dots so we know where we're going to be working on. So I'll work along that black line, this black line here, just to keep it nice and straight, and here as well. I'm going to come back, myself, come down, and I'm going to start putting some, I think these are called the weft yarns in. Okay, so it's just a big, long darning stitch. A little stitch in, little running stitch, and come back on myself. and then in and out. And we're going to leave the width of the yarn between. That's it's about there. So you need to leave a little bit of a gap like that in between these, otherwise it's going to get really difficult when you come in to weave in between them. Okay, so let's put a couple of running stitches up there, come back on myself. A few little running stitches, they just help to stabilise everything and blend the darn into the rest of the actual garment. Okay, so here's my darn coming down to here this time. A few little running stitches. Okay, so you can see the pattern emerging there. And by the way, when you actually get used to this, it's really a therapeutic thing to do. Actually gets me out of me scroll hole, as my kids call it. Okay, so let's push them together. So you can see all of those long stitches are all starting on the same line and finishing on the same line. Oh, the smell of this lemon's lovely. Oh. Just make sure you've just got one on the go. I'm just going to go over a little bit. One more, I think. Good luck. So, as you can see, I've got all of my weft yarn in place, so I'm going to start weaving now with my warp yarn. I think I've got that right. Any weavers here might pull me up on that. So I'm going to start here. So we'll leave a big tail because we've got to pull these inside and knot them all off when we're finished. Okay, I'm going to put a few little running stitches. Right, and now we're just going under and over, under and over. There's actually a little hand loom that you can buy to do this. My daughter's got one and she's used it to darn some socks. She said it was really good. But I think it's easy enough just to do by hand. Going down now, a few little stitches, and now we're going to go under. You can see, we're going under and over. This is why it's good to space those yarns out, because otherwise you just get mixed up with what you've just been, and you can't see the order of them. So we're going to just push that in, okay? And now a few little running stitches here, just to secure it. And here now I'm going to go over, no, that was over, so I'm going to go under, over, under, over. And this is why it's important to have a blunt needle, because we'd start stabbing all of the yarns themselves, which should make it really messy to do. So it's dead important to use a blunt needle to do this. Okay, you can see it taking shape, can't you? That little woven effect. So I'm doing this with 2 different colour yarns because I thought it's easy for you to look at, but now I'm looking at it, it actually blends in really nicely having 2 different colour yarns. just blend it in. And over. Just going to push it all in. You can see that darn taking shape now. Okay, so I'm just going to take my orange out. So there's my darn all done. If you look closely, you can see the weave of the two, the warp and the weft thread. And the important thing is it's got that softness of the fabric. Probably could have used better colours, but I'm happy with the look of that. It looks as if it's been loved and repaired. So I've pulled all of my tails out onto this side, and I'm just going to tie them off so that they don't come undone. Right, so that's a plain dart on a jumper.